Hello and good morning. It's Phil Thatch on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. I'm out here in my blind, and yesterday, May the 3rd, a video that I made in the blind using my Nikon Z50 and the 200 to 500 came out and had a lot of positive reaction to that. So I decided to bring it back, and when I was making that video I realized that I had a lot better luck with that camera if I pre-focused. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to have the Z50 with the 200 to 500 pre-focused on my favorite perch, the one on the left hand side of the suet feeder, and anytime something comes there I'll be ready. And then I'm going to use the R7, which is not as important to pre-focus with. It still helps, but I'm going to use the R7 for virtually everything else. And you know, I might switch them later in the video, I'm not sure, but this is how I'm starting out. And I've already seen, I haven't made a single shot yet with the Z50. I had redone my bird feeders, and I had a shadow on my favorite perch, which is where the Z50 is pointed. So I just got out and fixed that shadow problem, and now I'm ready to go. It's cold. It's May the 4th, like I mentioned, and it's 41 degrees Fahrenheit this morning. The meteorologist says this should be the last cold day until autumn.
The first bird that I saw to photograph was this beautiful male northern cardinal, and it wasn't on my perches on the porch. It was a little further away in the Leland cypress, but I managed to bag a couple of shots of it that I liked. The Leland cypress is kind of a crowded area in terms of clutter and branches, but I still like the way it looks. And then I made a few shots of female house finches, and while the house finch photographs are being displayed, I'll go ahead and say that when using both cameras, the Nikon Z50 and the Canon R7, I did manual shutter speed and manual aperture, and I used automatic ISO, and then I controlled my exposure using the exposure compensation dial on both cameras. Now this next shot is a female red-bellied woodpecker, and I know it's a huge faux pas to make a photograph and share a photograph of a bird on a bird feeder, but this just shows how determined she was to get that nut and berry birdseed that we've been using lately. She's too big to fit on those perches, but she has found a way to get up there and get that birdseed. And also look at that beautiful bokeh-fied background that came into this shot.
For the last couple of mornings I've seen a really small downy woodpecker. I'm thinking it's got to be a juvenile, smaller body, almost no tail feathers. And I haven't been out here in the blind while I've seen it. But that's the bird I was really hoping to get today, and it finally landed on the left perch, and I'm pretty sure I got a shot of it with the Z50 and the 200 to 500.
Here's the first shot I got of the little woodpecker. This one was with the R7, and I don't know, maybe it's a juvenile, maybe it's a female with her tail feathers missing. I'm not sure, but either way, she was super cute. And here is the Z50 shot on my left perch. Heather and I have decided to call this perch the left perch because it's on the left-hand side of all the feeders. So the Z50 was used.
I had a male downy woodpecker land on the left perch and made a shot of it with the Z50 as well.
He's kind of blocked by the perch in this shot. It's still beautiful, the eye's nice and in focus, but I do have a better shot of the male downy woodpecker later that I used the Z50 on as well.
The bluebirds really enjoy our nut and berry feed that we've been putting out for the last few weeks. So glad we discovered that, and it comes to the feeder, which is unusual for a bluebird unless you have mealworms out. But I don't like to make photos on the feeder, but the male was on the feeder, and then when it got done it flew over and landed just briefly on the dead half or the non-green half of the Leland cypress in the background, and I got a shot of it with the R7.
Look at that bokeh-fied background behind the male eastern bluebird on the branch. And you know, there were lots of twigs on those branches, but I trimmed most of those off so it would make a good perch. And here's another beautiful example of a female house finch.
A brown thrasher stopped by, and it had one of its legs tucked up into its feathers so convincingly that I thought it only had one leg. I made a number of pictures that I'll show you right now, but as it flew off, it landed on another place, and it has two legs, but it sure looks like just one.
There's the brown thrasher on its peg leg. I guess it was maybe scratching. The other leg was completely gone. Can't see it at all, but maybe it's up in there scratching. And here is another male northern cardinal back in the background on the Leland cypress. Really beautiful color combination here.
The male Downy Woodpecker landed on the right perch, and I got a shot with the R7, and then just a couple minutes later it came back and landed on the left perch, and I got a shot of it with the Z50, probably a better shot than I got earlier.
I love the way both of these shots turned out. Here is the shot on the right perch made with the R7 at 270 millimeters. And this is probably my favorite Z50 shot of the day. This 270 millimeter shot also of the beautiful male Downy Woodpecker there on what we like to call the left perch.
I got a dreamy looking shot of the chipping sparrow on one of the perches. And then I got a really nice shot, I thought, of the Brown Thrasher on another lower perch.
The chipping sparrow shot is nice, but it didn't turn out as nice as I thought when it looked dreamy on the back of the camera. But I'm really happy with this shot of the Brown Thrasher. This may be my favorite shot of the entire day. I just love those birds with their speckled breast and beautiful colors and their bright yellow eyes.
Battery life is notably better on the R7 than the Z50, and that makes sense because the R7 has the same battery as the larger full frame R6 and R5. And the Z50 has a small battery. It doesn't have the same battery as, say, a Z6 or a Z7. And that's one of the things I really wish for in an APS-C camera from Nikon in the future is the larger battery from the Z6, Z7, D500, D850. Though that's a good battery. The battery that comes with the Z50 is terrible.
Here's a photograph of a tufted titmouse that was looking right at me. I think these are one of the cutest birds you can ever photograph. And here's the male northern cardinal. It's down on the terracotta pot checking out the lantana that Heather and I just planted. And now here is a photograph of a male house finch. Really love the way this one turned out. Just a beautiful example of this bird. Here's the chipping sparrow on a new perch that I've only had for a little while, and I'm really enjoying it, especially the location with the background. This is a female eastern bluebird. Note the much more subtle colors than the males, and one more shot of the female eastern bluebird there on that perch that I really love the position of because of the background.
A chipmunk has found its way into our feeder area, and it's adorable.
I made a quick video clip of the chipmunk as it was feasting on some black oil sunflower seeds there on the handrail of the porch and near one of my perches. And then here is a beautiful photograph. I just love the way this turned out of the chipmunk up on the log, which has a hollowed out area in the top where I keep birdseed.
I took the R7 off the tripod and shot out the back window of the blind over towards that tree. It's a redbud tree, and the female eastern bluebird was in it. I had to set the camera on the rail and turn the flippy screen around and just count on iDetect autofocus to work. And I think it did.
Here's the female eastern bluebird there in the redbud tree, and this one little piece of the tree hasn't sprouted new leaves this year, and I almost trimmed it off, and now I'm glad I kept it.
I have a really young magnolia tree in the yard that I planted over that way. I planted it right about the time that my daughter moved into the Magnolia dorm at the University of Tennessee, which she doesn't live there anymore, but it's getting a little bit bigger, and an eastern Phoebe landed in it, which they never come up onto the porch in my feeder stations. But I made a shot. I just turned the R7 over in that direction and zoomed it out to 500 millimeters and made a shot super small on the frame.
There it is, perched in the top of the small magnolia tree, the eastern Phoebe. And you know, if you catch the light just right, you can see that they have beautiful brown eyes. Love the way this shot turned out, even though it's small on the frame.
I got a little bonus for you. You know, I'm only out here in this blind maybe once a week, usually maybe once every other week. But every day I stand at the kitchen window, which leads out onto the back porch, and I look and see what's out here. And 2 days in a row, there was a female rose-breasted grosbeak, and you know, I took a picture of her through the glass door. It's terrible, but the second day she was out here, but she was over on the Leland cypress, and I went to the camera room and I got my R7 and the 100 to 500, and I came out on the back porch, and she stayed on the Leland cypress on the dead side of it, and I didn't have a clear shot, and I'm thinking, oh man, if I move some more, she's surely going to fly off. I can't believe she didn't fly off when I came out the door. but I moved some more to where I got a clear shot, and she stayed, and I was able to get a few shots of her. So let's take a look at the female rose-breasted grosbeak, who was out here for 2 days, and now she's gone to continue her migration.
These are definitely the best rose-breasted grosbeak shots I've ever made. I've only seen them just a very few times. And, you know, I was just getting ready for work. I wasn't planning on doing bird photography at all, but there she was. So I got my camera and made these shots. And even though the female rose-breasted grosbeak are nowhere near as pretty as the males, which are red on the breast with black heads and also white trim, the females are still beautiful in their own right, and I was happy to photograph her.
It's been a fun morning out here in the blind. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. If you want to see some more like this, subscribe, hit the bell, and as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye from the back porch blind.